Hey guys, and welcome to another video. I have been thoroughly distracted by the PvP leagues, but today I wanted to talk to you all a little bit about the raid lore, and specifically what the story is, what's going on with Wing 1 of the Spirit Vale, because what ArenaNet have done so far is set up a really interesting mystery. I actually think that the raid specifically does include, while not the most important story, as they've said, the story of the raid should be somewhat secondary to the primary plot point, so that people interested in Living World Season 3 and the stories beyond don't have to be forced into this incredibly difficult content. Though it may not be the most important story, it's actually an example of some of the better storytelling that they did in the entire expansion, and we've only had the first wing so far. So for those of you who really cannot dedicate that much time to get into the raids to be able to play them, I hopefully can offer you a couple of insights here. The way that they tell the story is through primarily achievements. Now, there is some story as you progress dealing with specific bosses, and a little bit of dialogue that comes of them, and what is given to us through them is fairly tantalizing at that. But instead of the story being tied to generally the main raid mechanics and the super difficult stuff, it's more secondary things you can do on the map, and this is actually really smart. It's smart because when you're playing the raid, when you're learning it, when you're in progression, this idea of getting better at it, it's really hard to focus on anything that's not the mechanics, right? It's hard to focus on anything that's not your skill rotations and where you need to be stood and where your friends need to be stood and the mechanics you need to be playing into. That will take up like 110% of your focus. And often I need more focus even than that to deal with everything perfectly. I miss constant dodge rolls and so on. And so, even if there was a load of amazing lore going on, right, like you're DPSing a boss who's coming out with all these fascinating facts about why they're there and pleading with you or something, I think ArenaNet recognized that people just wouldn't be able to pay that attention during that time, and they kind of separated the two. I think what they also realized is that when you're raiding, when you're looking for 10 players, and when you're spending that many hours together, there can be a lot of downtime, right? Like, one guy goes off to have a pee, and you've all been waiting 5 minutes for him to get back, and then just before he returns, another of you guys says, all right, look, they've gone for ages, I'm going to go make a sandwich. And then that guy leaves, and then the guy who was peeing comes back and says, all right, are we ready? And we're like, no, now we have to wait for the guy who goes to make a sandwich. These kinds of things happen a lot, and especially when you compound that with build crafting, people leaving the group and having to be replaced, and so on. It's kind of like, well, what do we do? What do we do as just sort of everyone who's still attentively playing the game and doesn't want to leave? Well, for that, you have story stuff. For that, you have various side achievements that have you brushing over these maps with a fine-tooth comb. So the areas around the primary encounters, the places around where the bosses are, there are three main achievements you go for. One of them is collecting dog tags. You wander around finding bodies of various packed members, you press F on them, you get the dog tags. There's really no story involved there. But the other two do have a lot of story. Primarily is an achievement where you are finding lost papers and notes written by the bandits about what's going on in the Spirit Vale. Essentially, what ArenaNet have done is set up a mystery story here. And so you don't know exactly what's happening, and you are really excited to find each of these extra notes because it could give you some extra clue. And rather than it all seeming like they're just kind of unmeaningful crap that you can't discern anything real from, they actually are a little bit more involved than that. So in this video, I'm going to show you guys through all of those notes. And then at the very end of the raid as well, there's actually a section where you can, and there'll be spoilers for the raid here, guys. Once you've done the first wing, you recover a group of pact that had been accosted and encaged by the bandits. And there's another achievement to speak to all of these characters, and I have all of that dialogue in this video for you guys as well. It's really interesting. The general premise, then, is that there were some pact flying over those northern areas of the jungle, set up camp, decide to investigate, they get attacked, and many of them are kidnapped. You believe you're just simply on a rescue mission to deal with them, but as you travel, the map itself starts to tell more story. So this is one of the places I think that the raid really shines. And that is that the entire map is kind of built, yes, to give us some ultra difficult bosses and encounters, but also there is a huge amount of attention in this map to the story, like physically, the design of the story. So what you kind of find with the personal story for Guild Wars 2 is it feels a lot like ArenaNet made some big PvE maps, some pretty jungle maps with overworld meta events and stuff, and then they kind of just slapped in personal story over it and repurposed some of those areas for story. And so you'll kind of go to a totally generic field, and ArenaNet will populate it with a bunch of Mordrum mobs and say, this is a prison guard camp because look, we put all these mobs here and then there's a couple of, like vines around. Well, you don't get that with the raid. In the raid, the bandits are experimenting. They're doing something behind a giant wall. And at night, people talk about how they can hear flashes and screams from behind it. And as you're exploring through the raid, you see this massive wall being constructed. It's like there's a lot more ties to the story based on where you're physically traversing. There are giant rivers and spirits of souls. And a big theme of the story with this raid so far seems to be have a lot to do with the undead, as we'll see in a second. And, you physically see that. So I really do think that that's improved a lot of things. That's basically the biggest pro of this. And that's not to consider also the things I mentioned in the betas. The fact that you're out of all 10 of your characters, various players' characters will quip about different things as you go through. So, for example, one of the bosses you find, Gorseval, the first person to walk over to Gorseval will say, wow, what the hell is that thing? But depending on who went up there first, it'll be a different character that says it. They don't use phasing in a weird way. It really does feel like you and your 10 mates are going through on this weird investigation. Of course, though, your first time through, your mind's probably a lot more on the actual raid stuff. The only cons I can really find is that there is a lot of reliance on doing these achievements to really understand more about the story. For your average raider, who maybe doesn't care about the story in the first place, so maybe this is a beautiful marriage here, but for your average raider, they're just going to walk up and see Gorseval, for example, the second boss, a giant abominable thing, and the only story they get is, whoa, what is this? And then they get kind of a generic enemy that, as they DPS, taunts you and says generally evil things that have no meaning, and then they kill it and they move on. And there's really not much more to it. You have to dive into the achievements to know more, and I think that's a little bit of a shame. But it's not universal. The final fight, if you really do pay attention, actually has some pretty interesting stuff. Like, so for example, at the start of the raid, you hear about a woman named Sabbatha. And she, of course, is the final boss. And when you encounter her at first, before the fight even begins, she says to you, wow, you came all this way just to free a few packed soldiers. You really have no idea what this place is at all, do you? And straight away there, that gets people interested. One of the transitionary bosses during the Sabbatha fight, where she leaves the platform and another guy comes on called Knuckles, actually has some kind of personality with him. He seems like he's being a bit bullied, a bit vindicated by his peers. He says, oh, I hate the way you call me Knuckles. And even as you're fighting him, he says, please, no, stop, but trust me, I'll tell you everything you want to know. And then Sabbatha, shuts him up. That stuff's awesome. And kind of stands in stark contrast to the way that they did the Gorseval fight. So it's not all doom and gloom. I was pretty disappointed that we just kill Sabbatha instead of tying her up after overpowering her and just getting all the answers right there. But then blowing the answers to the mystery a little bit early wouldn't be the greatest thing either. And actually, again, this is... some of you guys might be a bit cynical here and thinking, man, they're setting up another mystery. But I actually feel really good about this one. Why do I feel good about this one? Because we know that each raid is going to be an enclosed story, right? And we know that this raid has 3 wings. And there's kind of a precedent there, just because of the way that the raids are done, that we know we're going to have a beginning, a middle, and end is going to be concluded. Whatever mysteries they're setting up here, we're getting those answers, and it feels like there's a real roadmap there, and so it's really exciting to actually speculate about them. Alright, so that's about everything. Let's jump on into the achievements, have a little bit of a closer look at exactly what's going on in the Spirit Vale. Okay, so here, as you guys can see, we're at the start of the Vale. Now, once you've cleared all the bosses, you actually get free roaming opportunities to just wander around until the week resets and kind of experience the map. So you don't have to worry until after it's all cleared if you really want to look into this stuff. But what I decided to do was go on a bit of a tour with you guys of where all of the map shards were. So this is kind of an achievement guide as well for what it's worth. So the first thing you come across is obviously this packed camp here. And these guys are what remains after an attack of bandits. They set up that there was some big energy wave from the south. Remember in the betas where we actually heard this information? And the devs told us that certain things have been cut out of this raid to not spoil stuff at the end of the Thorns story. Well, I actually don't know what the hell was cut out of the raid. It seems pretty much the same as what we saw in the betas. The assumption here would be that the energy wave from the south was the death of Morgemoth, perhaps. And some of these notes will go into it. So, first of all, we just get some information from our allies first. So, you've got this map that they have written here. It says it's a half-completed map of the area. The platoon had just started exploring before they were interrupted. So, they get there, and then they're immediately attacked. Next to it, of course, is this paper here as well, where they read that they arrived at sundown, they secured the area and pitched camp without an issue. They identify that there are 3 structures to the north, and they'll investigate at dawn. There's actually 4 structures they should have identified. One's a giant wall just off camera right now, and then the 3 structures are related to the actual next boss fight, which is the first boss fight of the fight, which is the Vale Guardian. And actually, some of the lore will mention the fact that nobody's managed to get past the Vale Guardian. That's another thing the raids are pretty good for. They kind of hit 2 sides of the coin really well for me, and that's that you feel like a badass when you kill mobs. Like, the NPCs are like, oh, we can't do this, and you go through and obviously clear through things, and that makes you feel like a badass. But at the same time as well, these are just kind of like regular bandits. We're not fighting some world-shattering, ridiculous nonsense. They're bandits. I somehow enjoy that quite a lot. As we wander around, you notice one of my allies there's characters started speaking. And he said, strange, this is human architecture, but what's it doing all the way out here in the jungle? Early on in the raid, we're just kind of coming to terms with the fact that the bandits are here at all. We're wondering why they're here. This is the giant wall. This is the thing that it would seem, I would predict that the next wing of the raid, we go behind that wall. Why? Because at the end of this story, there's a gate that's closed at the moment that seems to head us off further to the west. It's actually quite exciting to me because, as we all know, the Bloodstone is somewhere off to the west too. One of my early theories actually about the raid was that the Bloodstone would be a part of Wing 1, and it certainly isn't a part of Wing 1. But who knows, maybe this story is somehow related to that stuff. It's got a lot to do with souls, and the Bloodstone's got a lot to do with souls as well. We'll see as we go along. Alright, so here's the next note. In a tent here, Sabbatha thinks that there might be a search party coming for the prisoners. I don't think they'll make it past the Guardians. No one has. So this is from the perspective of a bandit. This is one of our earlier things that we hear about Sabbatha. And so what this means is that the bandits took some prisoners, and one of the bandits among them is kind of thinking, oh, what if they send some people to look for the prisoners? But their leader, Sabbatha's like, nah, no one ever gets past the Guardians, the Vale, and no one does, which is the first encounter. Don't worry about it. The bandits, of course, are good enough to get past the Guardians, and the question is why? Is it through brute force, or is it because they somehow set them up? And that's actually a bit of a question we'll ask ourselves here too as well. Next note is just over here on the right-hand side. Again, you'll notice that where we're stood, it's really nowhere where no fights begin. This is before even the first battle, which reads, again, from the bandits' perspective, the pylons have been imbued with energy ever since the wind storm. I have my theories. It came from the south and radiated north. That can only mean one thing. And this is the theory, perhaps, that this is because Mordramoth is dead, and the bandits seem to be theorizing about this, too, at the exact same time. Actually, there's no confirmation that does come from a bandit, but I believe the idea is that all the papers come from the bandits. Maybe there's a chance that some of this is from, like, a regular Pact person. Because the Pact did scout around here before they got attacked by the bandits, too. Not actually a note, but over here at the start, there is, of course, this scout as well. The Pact scout that gets crushed by this tree, who you interact with, and it says that they were killed before he could drop his weapon. It seems that the tree fell on him when this windstorm struck. Okay, now moving along from the first area and away from that wall, which we won't be seeing again for a while, which is coming to our left, we do have the place where you fight the first boss. These are the Vale Guardians. We, of course, get further than the bandits predicted. And this idea that these were only powered up by the windstorm makes me wonder what this place was like just before that. And in fact, a lot seems to have changed here directly because of that windstorm. That energy that came from the south, potentially the death of Mordramoth. Alright, so as we progress on, we come to this area. Now, this is where you first encounter the River of Souls, or Spirits, the River Styx. Now, this is actually not something without precedent in Guild Wars lore. It's just over here. We'll get some other looks at it soon. Actually, in the first game, you hear that there is a river which travels through multiple realms of the afterlife, specifically the Domain of Anguish, or the Realm of Torment, sorry. The Realm of Torment plus the Underworld. And that these souls kind of go to the Underworld where they're then judged by Grenth and then moved on. And here we see one actually physically out interior. A lot of souls. This we've never seen in any of Guild Wars lore, like on Tyria. This is very, very, very weird. And there's nothing that really super directly mentions this at the moment. But so there's a lot of souls, a lot of undead activity. Here you'll find that we come to some other ruins. Now, is this the same architecture as the wall we saw constructed by the bandits? Well, potentially, it does seem like this was something of a village, actually. And again, I would guess this is still considered human architecture. When you first come here, there's a lot of very angry ghosts around. Here you go, a better shot of the river here. Who are you going to be dealing with? And another hidden note. This note says, again, from the bandits. Has to be from the bandits at this point because the Pact never got further. The bandits are saying, we dumped more bodies in the woods, but ever since the event, it's getting more dangerous out here. I vote we burn them. Which is interesting. Burning bodies wouldn't necessarily stop them from becoming ghosts, right? But that was their vote. Apparently, the bandits are dumping bodies. Are these the bodies of the Pact, or perhaps the people who were originally living here? Perhaps the bandits came in and wrestled them out. It's really a little bit unclear here. The event, I would guess, also, again, is like this windstorm that powered everything up. And again, as we go over this architecture here, we got some more stuff. You'll notice that this is already overgrown. It's already much older, while the big wall we saw at the start was still being constructed. So that's one of the reasons I think that maybe they're not all created by the bandits. And we'll see more as we go along. So the next note reads, Sabbatha sent their leader for questioning. Hasn't decided what to do with the rest. We could either put them to work or watch them get eaten by Gorseval. I could use some entertainment. So Sabbatha took the pact leader, the squad leader, and at the end of this raid instance, we're actually going to find that even though we save a lot of the pact, their leader has been taken further along. So Sabbatha's going to send their leader further in, and the rest they don't really know, and we're going to find a lot of them in cages. But this is our first word of Gorseval. We don't know what Gorseval is yet, but Gorseval is the second boss, and it seems like the bandits have just been throwing people at it to die to him, basically. Very, very brutish. That note can be kind of hard to understand until you do finish the raid and you find out that the leader of the pact who were kidnapped is a distinct character that's been moved further along. Another note very quickly, and again, here we go. Ever since that windstorm riled up the ghosts, we can't patrol the jungle floor. So the windstorm powers up the pylons and riles up the ghosts. We can't patrol the jungle floor, they say. It's infested with those damn things. Got a hunch they came from inside the compound. I know what they did. Now, this is very, very curious to me. I have two ideas about this. Number one, I know what they did could be referring to us, the players, who killed Morgemoth. So it's ever since the windstorm riled up the ghosts, we can't patrol the jungle floor. I know what those guys did elsewhere. Or it could be in reference to the ghosts themselves. Or the windstorm may not even have anything to do with Morgemoth's death. But we'll continue here. So, yeah, this is one of the really cryptic ones. Hopefully Wing 2 or 3 does explain this a bit further. And if you guys get any theories, I'd love to hear it. That's exactly why I'm doing this video, basically. Love to have some discussion with you guys. Here begins the second encounter. This is the one where you're running. You're fleeing for your life against a giant spirit wall. The bandits said they couldn't really patrol the bandit floor, and you're damn right, it would be very difficult to patrol the bandit floor. Is this the compound of which they speak, or further inside? I guess further inside the, where we seem to be headed to in Wing 2. But we kind of get these pretty shots. We run along with the river here, very close to us. There really aren't too many notes or anything in this section of the wing, just because, I mean, mechanically, this is kind of one of the areas where you'd be fighting or you're really focusing a lot. The other areas, yes, had ghosts and things in them originally, but you kind of clear them out. They're like trash in almost the truest sense of the word. They're not like trash bosses or encounters of their own. They're just sort of kill them as you go. Back to the bandit area here again, and we actually come to a pretty interesting graveyard. Now, this footage, I don't go to the graves. There really wasn't anything crazy I could see from them. There were a lot of dates of graves from people around Guild Wars 1's time. There were even graves here, though, from very, very, very recently, too. There were, like, graves marked of this year. People who died here this year and were buried here. So people were actively here, people who cared about burying graves. And based on the way that the bandits have been acting, I'm guessing that this isn't originally a bandit place. It's more like people were living here, doing things here, the bandits blew through and sort of killed them all. There wasn't a ghost problem here earlier in the year, is the point. Perhaps this all began with the windstorm. But hidden right around here, we do find a note. And this, again, is the bandit perspective, referring to the Pact. So they say they never saw us coming. The Pact never saw us coming. Sabbatha, the bandit leader, led us to their camp in the middle of the night. We took out their guard instantly. We killed a few more during the ensuing fight. We took some prisoners. It's very matter-of-fact the way they speak. I really like it. But this, of course, is describing the bandit perspective on that assault from the Pact that we got when we very first entered the raid. Where they were saying, oh, we've been attacked. Please help us. Please go find the rest of us. So they took some prisoners. Now, of course, we did hear as well about the downed airship deeper on down here, and we'll see that very soon. So this is this note, and immediately we come to the Gorseval fight. Now, there's like a mini achievement where you have to light a brazier. It really gives you no story, but we find a really big-ass, dangerous mob And our character remarks, what the hell is that thing? It says some horrible things to us. Now, actually, during the raid before this point, you've noticed that ghosts are combining together to become more dangerous ghosts. And the idea of Gorseval, the Multifarious, okay, is that he is a giant monster made up of lots of little ghosts. And the ghosts keep combining and keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And there's a note that specifically says this in a moment. It says, you know, if you combine too many, you eventually end up with Gorseval. But when we first meet him, he's just this horrible, deadly thing, and it's our job to kill him right here on this platform, surrounded by spirits, as you can see. Spirits even in the sky above us. Upon killing him, the way forward appears. There's really very little story there. As I say, it's kind of weak with the Gorseval thing. And we now encounter the bandits themselves. This is the first place where you actually find the bandits. This, again, is kind of more of a trashy area. This is after the second big boss. You'll basically just learn the mechanics about the next fight. This area has a lot of hidden stuff around it. The bandits living in these treetops. It's kind of cool, actually, because in Keswick Hills, remember, there's that bandit treetop town? And you see a little bit more of it here. These definitely are the bandits that we found earlier in the game. And actually, there will be a direct link message linking these to Fort Vandal. Next, we find this message. This is one of my favorites. This is one of the ones that tantalizes me in the best way, that really sets up the mystery. So this is a bandit referring, presumably, I would suppose, to the ghosts, which have become more active in the area. They attack anything that walks through these woods. Good thing they don't remember the truth. Otherwise, our little tree fort would be a pile of sticks by now. What is the truth? Is the truth that the bandits killed them and the ghosts somehow don't realize this, so they just kind of wander around and only attack mindlessly instead of specifically targeting the bandits? Or is something more going on here? But they're totally okay in their tree fort above the ground where the ghosts presumably were. Now, it's important to note that we don't find any ghosts here when we come through here. We just find a bunch of bandits that we slaughter. And very nearby, over here as well, in this little hidden area, I love the way they hid these as well, is the next note. And this is, again, referencing the ghosts. This bandit says, I can hear them at night. They sometimes talk like everything's normal. Then they start acting crazy, confused. Now, if you read this note, this may actually remind you of something else in the lore, and something that I've not talked about until this point. These aren't the first ghosts we've come across, all right? There have actually been ghosts elsewhere in the game already. We met some ghosts, actually, in the Crichton areas, you know, like ghost pirates and so on. But the most prevalent ghosts, not risen, okay, but ghosts, have been the ones that the Char are dealing with currently in Ascalon. And this description actually fits up very well with those too. Sometimes those ghosts talk like things are perfectly normal, they're still alive, and then they start acting crazy and confused. So is this somehow linked to the powers that forged Sahothin and Magdea? Would this be a weird tie to the many Ritlock mysteries we currently have? I gotta say, I'm not hugely supporting that idea, but it's a possibility. Moving on now, you'll notice that in this tree, we do have the crashed packed airship. And this is roughly where you fight the third boss, Sabbather, with all of her cannons and the big bad bandits. But to glide to this hidden little tree over here, you can actually find another note. And this is actually, though a very short one, a very important one, a bandit referring to more bandits, saying, a few more came over from Fort Vandal. We'll put them to work. Or perhaps not referring to bandits. Maybe referring to, I mean, around Fort Vandal was where they were trying to do the alliance with the Inquest and the Silvarion Nightmare Court. Neither of those have been seen in this raid, so I would presume that this is just in reference to bandits. But yeah, more people are coming from Fort Vandal. Remember the story at Fort Vandal that the bandits have been pushed out because of the activities of Morgemoth, and it seemed like they had some artifact or something they were running very quickly. Don't forget they also had a disused surrogate there as well. Maybe that'll tie into the raid lore eventually. But yeah, so these are exactly the bandits that were presumably in the Silver Waste, talking about New Kryta, and were in Fort Vandal and then moved on. This is that story continued. Remember, of course, as well, that the bandits are affiliated, quite probably, with the White Mantle, and that the White Mantle had heavy ties to the Bloodstone, which is just to the west of this area, and the Bloodstone had heavy ties to spirits, which, you know, basically the White Mantle back then would slay people over the Bloodstone, and their spirits would come out and be charged into soul batteries. It seems to me that these bandits and the soul stuff and the proximity to the Bloodstone, it's all tying up somehow. The ley rifts, by the way, if you just saw one there and are wondering what the story is with them, there's really no story. They just allow you to move quickly around the raid. All right, so once you've killed Sabbather, you come to this area here. And this area is where all of the packed soldiers were in their cages, and actually is where a lot of the bandits seem to have been living. You can't raid these houses or anything, but this is where 2 of the achievements take place. So you get the final notes here, and then you also get to speak to the packed NPC. So first we'll just finish the notes. This is the next one. This bandit says, I've never seen spirits do what these do. When threatened, they merge together to form a stronger entity. Put enough of them together, and you get that abomination outside the graveyard. And remember, the graveyard was where we went just before we fought Gorsable. And of course, this is Gorsable that he's talking about right here. So that's your confirmation there that actually we fought one Gorsable, but Gorsable is not like a unique entity. There could be more Gorsables if they just keep combining spirits together. But this also tells you quite importantly that a lot of the spirit activity isn't being super manipulated by the bandits. The bandits didn't know that the spirits could combine to create Gorsable. It's not like they were manufacturing these. It seems like these spirits getting restless because of whatever happened to the south, the windstorm, was all pretty much unintended and accidental, and they certainly don't have control over it. They've just been hiding from them. But I do think these are probably the ghosts of people that the bandits had killed. And again, at this point, remember that right at the start of this instance, we had these weird pylons and that weird platform that, for the rest of the raid, are not really touched on. Who created that? Was that the bandits? What's the deal there? Even more questions. All right, the next note here, and I believe maybe the fun, there might be one more after this. Those airship parts are like gifts from the skies, say the bandits. We've been using them to shore up the fort. Thanks, Morgemoth. So they kind of know that Morgemoth is a thing. Morgemoth is going on. They must know that the airships were originally constructed to deal with Morgemoth, and then this airship came down. I kind of find it funny that even while Morgemoth was active, while Morgemoth was doing things, it was really quite an irrelevance to what the bandits were dealing with. You know, the bandits had their own agenda. They had their own story. And that's what makes it feel good, that, you know, multiple stories are going on at once. We have another one here, which is really difficult to tell what it means. So one bandit says, one of the others, bandits, I guess, told me about the incident in town. He can't control it. If they're not careful, this little experiment of theirs will backfire. So I guess what this must mean is that some town, I guess, would be around where the graveyard is. And I guess that there was an incident there where some bandits were there, maybe trying to experiment or do something with the ghosts. Maybe they were trying to manipulate the creation of Gorsable or something. And there was an incident. It didn't go quite correctly, and they can't control it. Or this idea of the town, all right, is actually in the next wing a little bit further ahead. But I wonder what they're talking about there, what that incident was. This is really well structured because there's a lot of mystery here, but, you know, we're in the beginning. We'll get more payoffs in the middle, and then we'll get a really nice, satisfying end. They could do a really good story here, guys. Ah, I'm excited. And last of all, on this little roof here, we have the final note, which says, got word from the south. Morgemoth is dead. That might explain the shockwave we felt and the ensuing windstorm that riled everything up with magic. So this is one of those interesting things where the devs didn't entirely confirm that the windstorm is based on Morgemoth. This is why I've been so, you know, adamant about that angle, though, as we've gone through this video. Because really, I don't think they'd put this in here if that's not the main answer that they're going to give us. I'm guessing that, you know, the bandits drawing this correlation is where it's going to end. I don't think they're going to do extra story where we find, oh, the bandits were wrong about their assumption that that's what the windstorm was. I think really that is probably what happened here, and that's what kicked things into overdrive, I guess, with the bandits. All right, so that's the one achievement. The other thing to see is in this little banditry town are the packed soldiers who you free, and they actually have some story for you. Not too much, but there are a couple of interesting things to glean, and I do like the voice acting, so I thought I'd give you guys a first-hand impression of exactly what these guys sound like, and also, if you're going for that achievement, how to complete that.
The bandits marched us here through the woods. We almost didn't make it because of those spirits.
We saw them too. Fought a huge cluster on the way here. I don't think they'll bother us anymore.
I'm not so sure about that. Ghosts have a habit of coming back. And these spirits were especially angry about something.
So, there you go. Again, ghosts coming back constantly. That's very much like the Ascon ghosts. These ghosts are very angry about something, but they don't remember what they're angry about, I guess, from a previous note. That's the first Crusader. The second is this character up here.
Those bandits, mercenaries, whatever they are, rounded us up and brought us here.
What happened to your squad leader?
Don't know. He was taken away by soldiers. They look different. Can't have gone too far, though. They left on foot. Promise me you'll find him. He's the reason we're still alive. Said they could do what they want with him if they spared the rest of us. He's the heart of this squad.
We'll do our best to find him.
Okay, so the rescue mission is not over. This is going to be basically the main thing that defines Wing 2, I guess. We're looking for the squad leader who hopefully has learned some more. But do pay attention there a little more to the idea that the bandits don't look quite right. They don't look the same. I'm guessing they're going to be supercharged or powerful or something in some way. But yes. The squad leader so far, of course, as well, doesn't actually have a name.
I don't understand what happened. There was a big shockwave. Then the pylons. Those creatures came out of nowhere.
Understood. Get some rest. We'll have a full debrief later.
Actually, to counter myself earlier and through most of this video, the idea that this shockwave came from Morgemoth, it's kind of suspect, though, that the shockwave would only have affected people up here. Surely there should be talk about the shockwave in all the other maps? Or was there one there? We just simply don't know because there's not been story updates in those other areas. Like when Season 3 starts, is Timey going to talk to us about a shockwave she felt in Ratanovus? Or is this really something much more local? People think it's got something to do with Morgemoth, like the bandits thought, but it actually has something else. It's to do with something else. It's to do with the flashing lights and screams coming from behind the wall that we saw at the start.
Rest up. It's a long trip back.
Magic behaves differently here. I can't really explain it, but strange things are happening.
You've been through a lot. Regroup with the others and eat something. We'll talk later.
Now, the idea that magic behaves differently is kind of interesting because if we do think a little bit more about the Bloodstone and the idea that originally back in GW1, a lot of the humans were inheriting magic from those Bloodstones, there was the idea that there were different schools of magic and each was associated with a different Bloodstone. Since that time, the devs have kind of said that this really isn't the true way it worked. It's just sort of an old school way of thinking for humans. But I like that line. I wonder, the idea that magic behaves differently here does, again, say to me something to do with the Bloodstone and, a huge amount of magic being available.
We tried to fight them off, but there were just too many of them.
You fought hard and did the pack proud. No apology necessary, soldier.
What were those things outside the woods?
No idea. We deactivated the pylons and neutralized those guardians on the way in. Shouldn't pose a problem anymore.
See, how badass do we seem? How badass? But we don't know what those were. We don't know what the anomalies were. Of course, they do look like the anomaly from the Thormanova reactor. Again, high concentrations of magic. Okay, now over here, you can see the far side of the area. Now this is the gate. This is deeper into the raid. This heads west. It strikes me that we're going to have like another length of the map, which just goes further to the west and maybe south again, leading us eventually directly behind that wall we first laid eyes on at the start of Wing 1. But that's the gate out. It's currently closed. You can't get any further.
You're free.
Those ghosts want vengeance. They attacked anything that moved. Us, bandits. What happened to them?
We don't know.
One of the mercenaries went deeper into the jungle a few days ago. I keep hearing screams and seeing bursts of light at night. Something's going on.
I think your squad leader may have been taken there. Rest up and collect your thoughts. I'll need a full report.
So, this is actually the second character that mentions the screams and bursts of light. At the start of the raid, there was somebody who mentioned it too. There's, funnily enough, a chefing station there. That's a legit chefing station that, functionally for us, we're not going to want to use it as chefing, but you can use it as a bank for what it's worth. And then finally, all the way down here, is the final NPC, right near where you fought Sabbatha. Who says?
It's okay. You're okay. You're going home now.
Now, is he just disturbed because of the things he's seen? Or because of weird specific stuff that the bandits have done to him? Anyway, there you go, guys. You're pretty much caught up. That's everything that we really got from the story here, minus some of the very early initial dialogue from that initial NPC that I kind of explained to you guys. That's the raid so far. I'd be really curious to hear what you guys think. Again, I really think there's a lot of mystery set up here, but it's exciting to me because I really feel like there's an end point, unlike with many of the other mysteries that ArenaNet might set up. I think over the 3 wings, or I would hope over the 3 wings, we get a pretty satisfying story. So the connections do seem a little bit too much to be coincidence to me. I'm looking forward to moving further into the Spirit Vale. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.